binti Harun. I am from AM1102A. My student ID is 202112725.
My name is Dayansita Isa binti Awa Amran. I'm from group AM1102A. My student ID is 20211159119.
My name is Siti Nur binti Yaqub from class AM1102A, number ID 20211050809.
My name is Saidatu Farisha binti Saifullah and I am from AM1102A. My student ID is 20211055577.
My name is Nurul Shahira binti Ahmad. I am from class AM1102A and my student number is 2021127097.
The division of government, legislative, executive, and judicial authorities among diverse and independent bodies is referred as separation of powers. The oldest contemporary expression of the concept was Montesquieu de Esprit des Lois, 1748, which was inspired by the English Constitution. Following that, countries such as Malaysia and the United States have their own power separation scheme. In addition, the President of the United States is the country's chief of the state. Next, the executive branch is the highest level of government in the United States. The President has the power to govern and appoint officers who report directly to him. Moreover, separation of power from Malaysia, where the king is the head of state and the prime minister is the head of government. Malaysia does not implement complete all separation of powers with the exception of the judiciary, which is separate from the executive and legislative branches.
Today I'm going to talk about bills in Malaysia and the United States of America. Definition of bill is the law that has been stated but has not yet to be recognized as a law that can be executed. The bill it must debate and approved before it can be declared as a law. Also will be passed to the Yang di-Pertuan Agong for his concern in Malaysia because he is the state head of state and the president in the United States of America because he is the country president. In Malaysia, the bill is easily passed because there were bicameral chamber which has a bicameral legislative structure that is made up of three bodies of government that fall under the administrative branch and can assist the executive branch, legislative branch, and judiciary branch in smoothing out the process. The legislative was in charge of the carrying out the executive functions, which doubled the burden of responsibility and violated the separation of power principle. By the edge, the executive branch will be easily influence legislative branch decisions because they are the member of both branch, and if they disagree with the decision of the head of the government, the person may be expected to resign or fired. The legislative, executive, and judicial are the primary branch of government in the United States of America. As a result, the employs two types of political parties, that is Republicans and Democrats. Also, the president wields the power of both real and fiction executives. Therefore, there are members of the executive branch known as the Secretariat which employs 50 secretaries under Barack Obama's administrations. The members of the House of the Senate and the House of Representatives were then elected in two separate elections and were not appointed to the executive or judiciary. Finally, the lengthy process of enacting legislation may have an impact on whether or not the measure is signed into law. Aside that, the bill must also go through several passes before it can be enacted into law. It considered and discussed in both houses, following the same method as was mentioned under the heading Lawmaking in the United States of America, and the procedure takes some time to complete.
Next, the difference in power separation practiced between Malaysia and United States country is check and balance system. We are well apprehensive that check and balance in that environment are meant to be a power that is not only held for one party only. This procedural process is intended to reduce the power of the party. In Malaysia, there are three authorities: the legislative body, the executive body, and judiciary. Each of them has the separated duties and liabilities, yet the same vision and charge for the well-being of the people. In each field legislation, there is Yang di-Pertuan Agong, Dewan Negara, and Dewan Rakyat. While in the executive field, there is Yang di-Pertuan Agong as advisor, cabinet, and ministries. In the judiciary, there are the High Court of Malaya and the High Court of Borneo, the Court of Appeal, and the Federal Court. Furthermore, the separation of power practiced in the United States is identical that in Malaysia, which has three branches. In the United States, the separation of power is separated into three parts: the council, the superintendent, and the bar. The check and balance system is a system by provided each government branch with the individual powers to check other branches and prevent any one branch from becoming too powerful. The check and balance system also provides the branches with some power to appoint or remove members from the other branches. Among one example is that Congress can prosecute and convict the president for heinous crime such as treason or corruption, while the House of Representatives has the power to bring charge of dismissal against the president. Next, the Senate has the power to convict and remove the president from office. Finally, judges can be removed from office by impeachment in the House of Representatives and conviction in the Senate. In this way, the system provides a measure in addition to a repeal to repeal law for each other checking branches.
Next, I will explain about the judiciary system in those two countries, which are Malaysia and in the USA. In Malaysia, the power of judicial for the federation is under the authority of the High Court of Malaya and the High Court of Borneo. The main roles of the High Court are to perceive and discover both civil and criminal cases. Besides, they are also given the entrust to adjudicate the validity of executive or legislative acts. In addition, Malaysia consists of four types of jurisdictions, which are federal state jurisdiction, appellate jurisdiction, referential jurisdiction, and advisory jurisdiction. In contrast, in the USA, the judiciary power is placed in the federal system's highest court, which is known by Supreme Court. Based on Article 3, Section 2 of the United States Constitution, the 11th Amendment limits the Supreme Court's jurisdictions, stating that they cannot hear any additional cases or issue judgment against a state if it is sued by a citizen from another country. In USA, there are two types of jurisdictions, which are original jurisdiction and appellate jurisdiction.
Last but not least, in lawmaking process, both Malaysia and USA have a number of steps that should be taken to enact national laws. In USA, the first thing that should be done by the representative is to propose a bill. The bill can be proposed by any of the member of House Representative anytime during the session. The bill is then will be referred to the Committee of Jurisdiction for bill review. After a bill is presented and referred to the jurisdictional committee, it is frequently assigned to one or more specialist subcommittees for research, hearings, changes, and also approval. Then, a public hearing will be done to hear the viewpoints represented by the representatives. The voting method used in lawmaking process in USA is the electronic voting method, which records each individual member's response that may be used to take votes. If the bill have majority votes, the bill is then will go to the next step, which is to the Senate. Before a bill may be brought to the President for signing into law, it must pass both bodies in the identical form. For the final approval, the bill is then returned to the House and Senate. 10 days is needed for the President to consider the final approval and enact the law. In Malaysia, a certain minister or ministry will propose a draft legislation as recommendation. The content of a bill is usually developed by the chambers of the Malaysian Justice Minister before being presented to the National Assembly. The first reading was seen as a mere formality in which a minister from Dewan Rakyat read only the title of the bill. Members of Parliament are not yet allowed to debate and discuss the bill during this session. When the first reading is done, the second reading will also be done in the Dewan Rakyat. The second reading is considered to be one of the most important stage in this process. This is where the bill will undergo parliamentary debate on its principles and content in the Dewan Rakyat. If there is no objection, the bill can be passed on to Dewan Negara. In addition, Dewan Negara discussions follow the same process as Dewan Rakyat. However, Dewan Negara may delay the adoption of the bill for up to 1 year before it is sent to Yang di-Pertuan Agong. The last step that should be taken is submission. After the bill is passed in the Dewan Negara, it will be submitted to the Yang di-Pertuan Agong for concern. However, Article 66 Clause 4A of the Federal Constitution provides that a bill becomes law after 30 days even if the government disagrees.
In conclusion, the bill will be sent to the Yang di-Pertuan Agong YDPA for his approval in Malaysia as he is the state's head of state. President of the United States of America is the country's president in accordance with the federal constitution. There are 3 bodies of government that fall under the administrative branch that can support the executive branch and legislative branch. Furthermore, because they are members of both branches, the executive branch will be able to easily influence legislative branch decision, and if they disagree with the decision of the head of government, the person may be expected to resign or be fired as a result of the act that will influence legislative branch decision because they are afraid of the action that may be taken for their own actions or because they have no other choice.